This is a global game. It's not local, it's global. And when you grow up, especially in the US, and you haven't been, say, across the Atlantic or across the Pacific, you are in a bubble. I'm telling you, you are in a bubble. And it's very tough it's not even that it's very tough. I would argue it's damn near impossible to mimic the experience of travel, not just traveling, but immersing yourself in different cultures, especially when you grow up as an American, even more so when you grow up as a Black American. You have to get out there and see other things because it'll change your perception. Colonialism. Do you even know what it is, what it means? I had really no clue what it truly meant, even though I had heard the term in different contexts growing up. I've always heard about the 13 colonies, right? I've always heard about the 13 colonies, the United States. Growing up in North Carolina, one of the original 13 colonies, you hear about this. But there's also like an order of operations too. Like they weren't all 13 colonies at the same time. Little by little did it grow and did it grow. This idea of colonialism and how it's impacted, especially today, modern day, what you and I know to be the present world, I think it's so emphasized. We don't discuss it enough, and how it relates and how it intertwines with everything that's taking place. This is a global game. It's not local, it's global. And when you grow up, especially in the US, and you haven't been, say, across the Atlantic or across the Pacific, you are in a bubble. I'm telling you, you are in a bubble. And it's not even that it's very tough. I would argue it's damn near impossible to mimic the experience of travel, not just traveling, but immersing yourself in different cultures, especially when you grow up as an American, even more so when you grow up as a Black American. You have to get out there and see other things because it'll change your perception. I grew up in North Carolina. All I knew was Black people, white people. But when you live in somewhere like Amsterdam, there's white people. But then you see Black people, but it's not like they're all the same Black. They don't all speak the same language. And that was when I learned about a small country called Suriname in South America, just north of Brazil. And as a Black person living in Amsterdam, I immediately noticed the influence of the Surinamese population in that city. It's undeniable. And shout out to my Surinamese brethren and my barber. Hey, Lionel, if you watching, Lionel, I appreciate you. He helped me go bald. Hey, look, man, for those, this is a complete side note because I know what that's like too, my brothers. I know what it's like, my brothers. I know what it's like. I mean, you might even see the little pic, man. I had them 360s going back in the day, man. Just thick, wavy. I get it, my brother. When that thing started to fade, man, that line consider just letting it go. My guy Lionel, he helped me get comfortable with that whole process before I started shaving myself. But he was a Black person that I met in Amsterdam, but he was of Surinamese descent. And then you start learning about these different cultures that as an American, I had never even heard of Suriname. I heard about this place once I got to Amsterdam, but that's when you find out that they were a Dutch colony, hence why there is such a significant population there. And then you start learning about other Dutch colonies, because also before I had moved to the Amsterdam, I had never really had Indonesian food. But when I went to Amsterdam, I got to experience Surinamese culture to some extent and Indonesian, which was very different. Also was a Dutch colony, Indonesia. The Dutch, man, they were very entrepreneurial, if you will, as it relates to their conquest. They were a very small piece of Europe, but man, they really found ways to get what they needed right? And then they were like, they created the first stock market, for example. So just very entrepreneurial, you know, masters of the sea and facilitators of that slave trade and getting stuff from one place to the next, like spice trade. The Dutch definitely had a unique rise to their, let's say, power and wealth. And I didn't really know about any of this until I got there. And as I start walking around the city, beautiful city, Amsterdam, you start looking at buildings and places, and they're literally older than America. They're literally older than America. It's like, wow, this is a very different part of the world than where I grew up. And when I look around, it's so small, but yet it's so influential. And it's like, why? And then when I was there, I would travel. We went to Belgium, even like smaller country. That's one of the crazy things about Europe, man. We stay in Amsterdam. You hop on a train, you're like 2 hours from Brussels. Maybe another 2 hours or less, you're from Antwerp, which are both two cities in Belgium. And that is such a small city, but man, they have some beautiful cities, some beautiful buildings, like, and a lot of this stuff again is as old, if not older, than all of America, which means they've been at this for a while. Living over there, being that close to this imperial regime that you just read about, like, you know, you're actually in these countries. I went to France, I went to the UK, I went to the Netherlands, Belgium, Spain. Like I went to all these different places, Portugal. And these are some of the biggest imperial powers that reigned in this colonial era, where they literally had a chunk. If you look at everywhere I just named, they literally had a chunk of everywhere outside of Europe, literally.